Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this new Fleet Europe webinar in partnership with Samsara on the power of transforming your fleet operations to overcome the biggest industry challenges. You see on the screen the title of this webinar: Connect Your Operations to Increase Fleet Safety, Efficiency, and Sustainability. Indeed, if there are three trends in our community that are really key, then it is, of course, all that has to do about sustainability, safety to leverage fleet operations and fleet efficiency. So, welcome again. My name is Steven Schoefs. I'm the head of strategic relations at Nexus Communication, the publisher of Fleet Europe, and I will be your moderator today. I have with me today in this webinar two experts that will deliver a presentation, and afterwards we will have a Q&A together with these experts, so there is time to ask your question and submit your question via the chat in this webinar tool. The two guests joining me are John Mills. He is the client director at Samsara, our organizing partner for this webinar, and Alberto Lodieu, who is the Senior Manager Consulting at Ptolemus Consulting Group. So let me run through the webinar. First, we will hear from Alberto Lodieu, a veteran consultant with over 14 years of expertise in operations consulting with a specialty in mobility and also location-based services. And he will talk about the current challenges facing fleet management, the general state of the operations industry, and the leading role connectivity has to play in handling those challenges. Then we will move on to the second presentation with John Mills, the client director at Samsara. And John has been helping organizations to meet their fleet efficiency, safety, and sustainability goals for over the past 20 years. So he is a true expert in this matter. He will be using his expertise, ladies and gentlemen, to delve into insights around the changing operations landscape, but also explore some of the key pressure points for fleet managers right now, as revealed in Samsara's 2023 State of the Connected Operations report that was just published, and how digital innovation is helping overcome those elements. Finally, as mentioned, we will open up the conversation to you, to our participants in this webinar, so you have also the opportunity to ask your questions and hopefully get the right answers by Alberto and John. Have a great webinar. So once again, if you have questions, submit your questions via the tool. We will take the questions at the end of the presentations. And now it's time to have our first presenter, Alberto Lodieu of Ptolemus Consulting Group. Alberto, welcome. Welcome to this webinar.
Thank you, Steven. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here with you and the audience. And as you mentioned, I'll talk about the fleet connectivity. For that, I will start with giving a high-level overview of the key milestones of fleet telematics so far.
Yes.
Then I will move into analyzing the most common services that are offered today in fleet telematics. I'll present the value chain dynamics and the key players, so what has been happening lately in the value chain. I'll present also some figures on the adoption of telematics so far in the different regions of the world, and our market forecast assumptions.
Okay.
And finally, I will provide a summary of everything I talked about.
Perfect. It's a packed agenda. So I suppose that we offer you the webinar floor and that you can start your presentation. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. So just a quick intro on Ptolemus for those of you that are not familiar with the company. We are a strategy consulting firm and market research firm completely focused on connected mobility and smart infrastructure. So the firm was created around 15 years ago, and it's always been our focus to analyze connected mobility. We've been following the industry since then, and we provide strategic consulting services and market research around the key topics of connected mobility that can go from autonomous vehicles to now road usage charging and all these topics that we have here. So we serve clients across the mobility ecosystem. We've done more than 200 consulting assignments for some of these clients. And we also publish reports on these topics. Most of the things that I will present today are coming from our research done for the Connected Fleet Telematics report. Then if I move to the next slide. Okay, so that's Tolemos. So just I want to introduce a bit what has happened in the fleet telematic industry since 1996 that it started. So I'll focus on the key milestone. Most of you might already be familiar, but it's just to set the ground for the next slides. So everything started around 1978 when the first GPS satellite was launched. And then we started to see in 1990s the first telematics devices and services commercially available. We also saw the emergence of the first web-based fleet management software. And then in the 2000s, we saw already the market flooded with the GPS vehicle navigation system. So the PNDs that became very, very, very popular. And with the emergence in the early 2010s of the smartphone-based telematic solutions, we saw how these devices started to reduce the penetration, and smartphones started to increase its penetration. We also saw in the early 2010s how IoT and M2M based telematics capabilities emerged. Then in the mid 2010s, we saw how fleet data platform and applications became a common practice, and how OEMs started to enable embedded vehicle telematics devices. Then by the late 2010s, we saw the emergence of artificial intelligence and machine learning applied to fleet telematics, and how telematic solution started to focus on electric fleets. This is much more recent, and what we expect in the 2020s is the era of the fleet electrification. So how different service providers will start to focus on this transition from ICEs to fleet vehicles. And what we expect by the 2030s is the era of driverless vehicles or autonomous vehicles. So we expect that fleets will also start to transition to driverless vehicles. So this is in a nutshell what we believe that has happened and will happen, that it's very important to set the basis for the next slides. Okay, so which are the most commonly available fleet telematics services offered today? So we have classified them in 5 main categories. Those related to visibility, which is probably the most common category offered today. Then we have those related to product and efficiency and safety and risk management, which are starting to emerge and are becoming more and more popular. We have also administration and compliance and ease of use. So these are the main categories for fleet telematic services. And we'll see how different devices can provide these services in the coming slides. So which type of devices are today the most used devices for telematics? They can be devices that are either aftermarket or line fitted. Line fitted can also be called embedded. So we have many aftermarket devices that can be fixed to the vehicle, can be removable, or can be portable. And we also have multiple line fitted devices that can be fixed, some that are removable, and very few that are portable. But these are, let's say, the universe of telematics devices. And it's very important to mention that there's a wide variety, which is pushing TSPs to create device agnostic platforms. If we focus on the most commonly used devices, we can see that each device will bring different types of data sets. So we have black boxes that are connected to the CAN bus that will bring vehicle data. We have also standalone black boxes that are not always connected to the CAN bus, and therefore they cannot bring vehicle data, but they bring more data sets related to location, speed, mileage, acceleration. They are also very good for crash detection and crash reconstruction. We have also OBD dongles, which will focus much more also on car data and location speed and mileage. And we have dash cameras, which will be much more focused on video. So the important thing is that devices will bring different data sets, and of course, this forces telematic service providers to create device agnostic platforms that can take data regardless of the device, process it, and clean it and leave it there for the analytics and for fleets to take decisions. Also, the data quality varies a lot, and that's why it's so important to have these device agnostic platforms that we see are emerging in most of the TSP services solutions. Okay, so if you remember, we saw the most common groups of services that we have again here, which are visibility, productivity and efficiency, safety and risk management, and administration and compliance. What we are doing in this table is to compare how the different devices will provide the different services. And something we can see here is that one of the key elements is this access to the canvas for services related to productivity and efficiency. For some other services, other devices will be much better complement. For example, for services related to administration and compliance, we have fleet telematics dedicated screens that can also provide parking related services and fuel related services thanks to the screen. Okay, then moving into the value chain, we have the typical telematics value chain that it's divided into 8 big groups or major blocks. The first one is connectivity provision. The second one is device provision. Then we have those related to the vehicle, which will be engine manufacturing, the assembly of the engine, and the installation of telematics in that case. Then we have the distribution and installation. Then we have what's called the telematics process management, then software and fleet management, and finally maintenance. So these are the main 8 steps of the value chain, and I'm mentioning them because now we will analyze how TSPs and OEMs are moving along the value chain. So here we're analyzing how TSPs are moving into the value chain. And what we can see is that in most of the cases, they are moving and they are starting to focus much more into the service provision and moving from service provision to software-centric offerings, mainly because we have OEMs already offering telematics. They are starting to create these offers that are much more focused on the software and not necessarily as in the past in the device. So this is regarding the TSPs and how they are moving. Then regarding the OEMs, we see they've entered and they are starting to offer more and more telematic services. This is very important for OEMs because it's a way to keep customers in their portfolio, and of course offering aftermarket services will guarantee that they remain loyal to the brand. As a consequence, and because for both it's very important to offer this type of customer-centric services, we see that in the latest years, there's been a lot of partnerships between TSPs and OEMs to create open platforms. This is very important for the industry, and it's one of the trends that is happening now. So we see more and more of these partnerships. And then in terms of adoption, we see that still there's a big room for growth in terms of adoption. The biggest markets for telematics today are North America and Europe. But still in those markets, we are below 50%. So there's still a lot of room for growth. And I think that's also very important to mention. We believe that there will be significant growth in the different segments of fleet telematics. Of course, we believe embedded will grow very fast, but we believe that aftermarket will still be there. As you see, there's still a lot of room for growth, and aftermarket devices will still play a crucial role. Even if the growth of embedded devices will be faster, aftermarket will remain the biggest market globally. In terms of on-road and off-road, we see that the market that will remain the biggest is on-road. And finally, in terms of the regions, even if the adoption in Europe and North America will be much higher than in other regions, Asia Pacific will will continue being the largest region in terms of number of vehicles with the telematics solution installed. So just to finalize, what we see today is that OEMs are starting to integrate connected services into their products. We see a lot of OEMs and TSPs partnerships happening to create open data ecosystems. We also see that open platforms now are device agnostic and support multiple devices. And thanks to big data analytics and AI, they can process much more data than before. We also see that service providers are leveraging these open platforms to create apps target to different telematic services. So what we can conclude from this is that today already from a technology standpoint, the ecosystem is very mature and it's already a robust ecosystem in place. There's let's say from a technology perspective, there are no major barriers today. Of course, things will continue to improve, and the fact that embedded devices will be integrated into the vehicle will reduce the cost of telematics. But we see that from a technological standpoint, the system is already quite mature. However, the penetration remains low, and this is because there's still many small fleets, and in many cases, the business case is still not positive or not proven, and this remains a big challenge for most of the TSPs. We believe that track and trace services have been very successful. However, it remains as a big challenge to influence the driver's behavior and to change it for good, and to make safer services and to increase the efficiency of the fleet. And as this happens, fleet telematics providers will be able to penetrate new markets and uncover the fleets. So for that, we believe that TSPs and OEMs need to develop mechanisms to engage fleets and drivers, and as a consequence, improve safety, emissions, and vehicle performance. There are many things they can do. They can reward drivers and create rewarding mechanisms. But what's very important is that they need to convince fleet managers to embrace telematics and to align their strategy, operations, and processes to the IT behind telematics. So everything it's integrated. If these actions are taken, and we anticipate they will be taken, we believe the TCO will significantly reduce, and therefore the growth that we presented will be achieved. And that's what we predict that will happen. So that's mainly it. Please feel free to ask any questions regarding the slides that I've presented, and thank you again for the opportunity to present our findings of the report.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you very much, Alberto. Thank you for your presentation and shining a spotlight on the evolution of telematics and also fleet connectivity. As mentioned, if you have a question for Alberto, then please submit the question via the chat function in this tool, because afterwards, after the presentation of our next expert, we will have time for Q&A. But before that, I introduce the next speaker. Already one question, Alberto. In one of the final slides, you mentioned that also in the upcoming years, you foresee that aftermarket telematics devices will stay very popular and even be larger in terms of volume that OEM embedded telematics solutions. Why so? Because if I'm just a little bit looking at both, then I would say, well, it's probably easier to just rely on the OEM embedded telematic software, and I don't need to install anything or have a relationship with another partner.
Yeah, so I think first of all, not all vehicles are already not all vehicles have an embedded device integrated. So
Mhm.
of course, the new vehicles, in most of the cases, they come with integrated devices, and this is in some regions. In some other regions, this is not the case. So this will play a role, and already in those cases, not all vehicles will be able to have a connectivity. Then we know that for some use cases, still some of the aftermarkets, because they are purpose built, tend to give better results or more reliable data for the use cases of the fleet managers. So we believe this will continue happening, and that's why many players will still rely on aftermarket devices.
Okay, thank you. And then the other questions we will take after the presentation of our next expert. And ladies and gentlemen, that is John Mills of Samsara. And I think that he has an engaging presentation because he is the right man to exactly address some of the challenges fleet managers are facing today. And also linked to the title of this webinar, he can quite easily link, let's say, the elements of safety, sustainability, and efficiency with some of the results that Samsara has found in their latest annual State of Connected Operations report. John, that report, when was it published?
That was published just earlier this year in the second quarter of the year, and it's a really extensive report, some really interesting results from across the globe and many organisations in EMEA. So I'm looking forward to presenting some of the findings to you all.
Perfect. Very nice that we can already hear some of the highlights and the most interesting elements of that report. And thank you very much again for the support of this webinar. So, John, also for you, after the webinar, after the presentation, we will take questions. So if you have a question for John, then just drop it in the chat function and I will take the questions afterwards. John, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, and Alberto. A really interesting presentation, and it was, really interesting to see the evolution of telematics over the years. And Stephen, thank you for making me sound so old. I have been involved from the outset of those GPS systems through to where we are today with our connected platforms. And I think what was really interesting to hear from Ptolemy was around the fact that there are no major barriers now to adopting this technology, to moving towards a connected operation, and that actually there's a recognition about how we can influence people such as the drivers and so forth to start to really take advantage of some of the data that's available to them. So just to start with, just to introduce Samsara to those who don't know us. We are a global technology provider to the physical operations world, and we provide, going back to one of Alberto's slides, visibility, safety and risk, productivity, admin and compliance, and other elements through our connected operations cloud. So we provide a platform to fleets and physical operations managers to improve the safety, efficiency, and sustainability of the operations that power our economy. So we're very much in that space of connecting disparate solutions, disparate systems, disparate siloed teams within organizations across the globe to really harness the power of the data that we hold. And we do that in a number of ways. We're empowering the people who power the world. Physical operations really does account for sort of over 40% of the world's GDP. Hundreds of millions of frontline workers, and that's everybody from the guys and girls behind the desk, planning, scheduling, ensuring compliance, right down to the utility workers in the field, the maintenance workers in the workshops, and importantly, the guys behind the wheels of the vehicles, helping power these physical operations. And we do that for a whole number of clients, as you can see there. They're across many verticals, many geographies. Some of those you may recognise. And I think really fleet managers across Europe are navigating a tricky landscape that poses a variety of challenges. There's the ever-present challenge around recruiting, training, and retaining the best possible industry talent at a time when the general talent pool in EMEA is relatively shallow. And then we've got something of a two-pronged challenge around digitizing a combination of both legacy and mostly paper-based systems, combined with integrating those that are currently siloed. So for fleet managers in 2023 and beyond, that status quo disconnected system is just not compatible with today's expectations of having a constant organization-wide live view and visibility of people and assets. So to better understand these major industry pain points and how to address them moving forward, let's dig into some of the key findings from our recent State of the Connected Operations report, which surveyed over 1,500 physical operations leaders globally, responsible for over 3.6 million vehicles and assets, and responsible, importantly, for 6.3 million employees across the globe. It's a really interesting report. It's publicly available, and I'll provide a QR code at the end of my presentation for those of you who want to read up some more on it. And I'm looking forward to your questions. What we did find, though, was that what sets high-performance organizations apart is those who really recognize themselves as digital leaders. So those that rate their organization's digital maturity as sort of 75 to 100% digitized. So only 8% of respondents recognize themselves in that leadership category. However, they were 5 times more likely to rate the productivity of their workforce as excellent, and 6 times more likely to report exceeding their financial goals by over 25%. So we do know there's a lot of benefit from going down a digitization and connectivity strategy. And physical operations really are at a turning point. There's relatively high employee turnover, not helped by recent crises, both with COVID and general inflation of costs. We've got pen and paper processes still predominantly in a lot of operations, leading to disparate point solutions, lost data, inefficiencies in ensuring that data flows through an organization, and really poor visibility into that data. So one of the first points I want to come to really is, against a backdrop of AI and automation, the importance of upskilling. So in the face of a shallow and aging talent pool, upskilling really has emerged as a critical factor for employee retention. And our report shows that, these are some of the statistics from the report. Digital workflows are going to be very important. The use of AI, whether that's through video or within other capacities in a business, really is going to drive change. And employees are going to be upskilled and reskilled to use things like augmented reality to help remove risk from organizations and risk from operations. We found that more than half of respondents, as 56%, reported increased employee retention as a direct benefit of upskilling and reskilling efforts. So this really underlines the link between upskilling and employee retention and shows the value of nurturing your team's growth in the long term. Similar conclusions can be found when it comes to productivity. Our report highlights that 56% of industry leaders consider improving workforce productivity through new technologies a critical priority. But technological advancements aren't just about automating tasks. They're about empowering your workforce to adapt and do more with the resources available. An example here, this is something that really still strikes me. 1 in 6 operations employees are predicted to be doing jobs that just don't exist today by 2025. So the time frame is here and now. Change is happening. As an example here of one of our customers using remote technology to drive yard tugs for container movements and so forth, removing that worker from areas of risk and improving efficiency and safety within the workplace. So by investing in your workforce's capabilities, you're opening the door to enhanced efficiency, reduced turnover, and ultimately a stronger bottom line. The key to staying competitive is enabling your teams to thrive in a technology-driven world. The next point I want to come to is the power of digitization. I mean, data and digitization as a competitive advantage is well recognized, both in terms of driving productivity and efficiency, and importantly, assisting employees and providing improved levels of customer service and customer retention to an organization. We know as businesses looking at this, it's a real competitive advantage being able to provide that real-time information within the business, but also out into the field, whether that's out to drivers and operatives in the field, or importantly, out to clients. And as business costs rise, we know there's a lot of pressure just to keep the lights on. So keeping operational costs down wherever possible, whether it's driver insurance, incident management, general business efficiencies, firmly front of mind. By leveraging technology, you can identify areas where costs can be optimized, helping you navigate these challenges effectively. It's much more than just moving away from paper documents. It's about streamlining operations, gaining actionable insights from data, and therefore boosting profits as a result. Embracing digitization means embracing a more agile and adaptable way of doing business. And let's face it, business is changing, the customer landscape is changing. And that's why the need for more digital investment is becoming more and more pronounced. As you can see here, our report shows that almost 3/4, 67% of organizations are increasing their technology budgets this year, recognizing that technology isn't an expense, but an investment that yields long-term benefits. And these benefits are already being reaped. Digital investments resulted in improved safety, 50%, higher revenue, 59%, and increased net profit, 56% of our respondents, for the majority of organizations within our State of the Connected Operations report. And bringing this all together, connectivity is the future. We need to move away from siloed data repositories, siloed teams. Remote working has really driven this. And as we can see, those connected operations are 19 times more likely to be profitable, as we've seen in our report, 6 times more likely to retain customers. The landscape, as I've said, the landscape of operations is changing, and physical operations are becoming increasingly connected thanks to advancements in technology. But the shift goes beyond adopting new tools. Organizations are looking to integrate systems, break down silos, and create a cohesive ecosystem that both themselves, their supply chain partners, and their customers can link into. So it's no wonder that the overwhelming majority of our respondents, 94%, said breaking down data silos would be critical to their survival. In an interconnected world, data is a valuable asset where information flows seamlessly across your operations in real time. You can make informed decisions, anticipate challenges, and seize opportunities before they pass. And that's very similar to Alberto's value chain. What we've done here at Samsara, as you can see, is pulled all these disparate multiple data sources through our own hardware, through our own sensors, through other sensors on vehicles, on sites, through integrations with other siloed systems, and flowing that data through our platform to provide the teams across the business with the information they need in one place. And that's really our role. And the result, smoother operations, better decision making, and enhanced customer satisfaction. And it's for this reason that 90% agreed data is a competitive advantage for their organization. So from workforce shortages to rising costs and disjointed systems, the numbers show there are a variety of challenges out there for the fleet managers in our audience this afternoon. But by understanding the situation, identifying a way forward, and making use of the support available to you, you can overcome these challenges. I think it's clear to many of those operations leaders we speak to that the time is ripe for digital innovation, whether that's explicitly targeting greater sustainability, safety, efficiency, or connected operations to achieve all three. At Samsara, we've seen firsthand how our clients and customers embrace a more connected approach to physical operations, and they've reaped the rewards both in terms of profitability and customer and employee retention. There's obviously a lot more data and statistics sitting behind these sort of headline points I've gone through. So for those of you who are interested in exploring further, visit the samsara.com website and just type in State of Connected Operations, you'll find the report. Or if you are quick enough, before Stephen takes this from the screen, you can scan the QR code, which will give you further access to it. Stephen, back over to you. Thanks for the
Thank you.
afternoon.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Thank you. And so here is again, for those that have their smartphone by hand, the QR code to download the report, The State of Connected Operations by Samsara. Really insightful lessons that you will get from this report. So please scan the QR code so that you have immediate access. John, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and the insightful insights. I think that you made a very good point about the importance of upskilling and how this plays a crucial role in empowering employees, but also ensuring employees tenure within the company, especially in the phase of global shortage of talent that we are facing in many industries. Before that, we take Alberto also in this Q&A. Perhaps a first question to you. We saw in the presentation of Alberto that for EMEA, the current penetration of telematics in heavyweight fleets and in medium heavyweight fleets was around 43% for heavyweight vehicles and 17% for medium weight vehicles. Are you surprised that this figure is that low?
I'm not, and I think a lot of this is around access to technology and the way that organizations are really changing how they think about managing their vehicles, their assets, and their people. I think historically there's been a tendency to view technology as potentially an unnecessary cost, but as I've explained, the need to become connected across the operation is starting to drive that up. And the point you made earlier around employee retention is really interesting, because quite often we speak to organizations and initially there's some reticence about deploying technology within the vehicle, especially if you're looking at, for example, we provide video technology with AI to support safety initiatives and empower those drivers. And there's often a bit of pushback, but we found a lot of our clients do retain drivers. As a result, I can bring to mind one client, Lanes Group, here in the UK. They run over 3,500 vehicles with us. They've digitized many processes using our platform, and included with that is a whole program around driver wellness. So we're not just talking about operational digitization, we're about ensuring that the employees fit to work, happy to work, and if they're not fit to work, how do we engage with that employee to ensure they're not in a position of risk? And they've driven driver churn and employee churn, bearing in mind this is a utility business, down to below 2.5%. So really impressive savings through the use of digitization. And the more organizations do that, the more I think the adoption will go up.
Okay, that's very clear. We can now have also Alberto in the webinar room so that we can take questions from the audience. If you have a question for John and or Alberto, then submit your question via the tool. A question for you, Alberto, that popped in, and perhaps afterwards, John, you can also add a comment. It's a question that goes like this. How do you explain, Alberto, the low penetration of telematics, especially since telematics hardware has become highly commoditized? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Now I can hear you. Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And yeah, sometimes it's even shocking for me to look at the low penetration. And I think it's because most of the fleets are very small, and actually the adoption of telematics in smaller fleets is quite low. So of course, larger fleets tend to already put in place systems, but smaller fleets do not. And the other point is, in particular for light vehicles, we have a very low penetration, and I think it's because they tend to go for free solutions, more for navigation, and they are still not used to implement, let's say, a full fleet telematic system for their fleets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bit strange, John, because it's not the first time, of course, that we talk with Fleet Europe about fleet connectivity. Mm-hmm. And in many events, many interviews that we have, we see that the benefits are not generated on the longer. Yes, there are benefits, of course, on the longer term, but already, let's say, once that you have installed telematics, there are clear benefits and results that come to life. So it's not that you need to wait, I don't know how many months or how many years before that you have the return on investment. Apparently, if you look at what telematics and fleet connectivity can bring in terms of efficiency, safety, and sustainability, there are already immediate gains that you can achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and we, for the majority of our clients, we count that ROI period in months through, safer, risk-free driving. And, bluntly, there are bent metal cost reductions, fuel saving reductions. I realize I'm preaching to the converted with the audience in this webinar, but the savings are there very much to achieve. However, I think it's important to note there's a human aspect to all this technology. There's two parts. There's the driver behind the wheel that we're assisting and empowering to drive in a more risk-free manner. But importantly, there's the management of that driver who needs to use the tools at his or her disposal in order to help drive that change and make that change continuous. And just to add to Alberto's point, you're absolutely right. The bell curve of fleet sizes within EMEA, we have a hell of a lot of very small fleets within EMEA that comprise a really wide strata of that number. What I would say is that the more those organizations are doing work and the way the economy is going, a lot of organizations are becoming subcontractors for larger organizations. They're actually becoming part of that larger organization's ecosystem who are promoting real-time data up to their end customer. The smaller operator is going to have to deploy these real-time connective systems in order to meet the requirements to work for their contracting partners. So I do definitely think there's a shift, and we'll see that change over the coming years.
Yeah, for sure. Because in the report, the highlights that you were showing from the report, John, you mentioned that organizations with connected operations are likely to be 19 times more profitable and successful than organizations that have not yet joined the digital journey. This is an immense figure in terms of benefits of a digital world, not only into, for example, your CRM tool, but also when it comes to your operations, your vehicles, your fleet.
Yeah, absolutely. It flows into all those previously siloed parts of an organization, doesn't it? You mentioned CRM, and let's extend that out to the customer experience. So that drives customer retention, live visibility of arrival times for deliveries, even down to a consumer level. But, work that all the way back to vehicle management and maintenance, the ability to provide live views of, something banal as dashboard warning signals, DPF filter percentages. You can be proactive about maintenance in that case. Really take big strides in taking chunks of cost out of that maintenance activity. Optimization of vehicles. If you're looking to ensure your fleet is doing the right thing at the right time to the right people, the older logistics adage of right thing, right time, right place. You can do that with real-time data flowing into your optimization tools. And then you're into right sizing the fleet as well, aren't you? So that flow of data becomes increasingly important in efficiency, productivity, and customer retention.
Okay. Alberto, based on the presentation and the presentation of John and the findings of the report of Samsara, what are your immediate thoughts? Do they reflect also what you are seeing within the industry and within the fleet connectivity ecosystem?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's pretty much in line with what we were mentioning in the conclusions, that fleet telematic service providers need to move into this second step of telematics, which is much more into changing the driving behavior of the drivers with the specific tools that were mentioned. So I think it's pretty much in line.
Okay, that's clear. Then also one of the key figures that I saw in your presentation, John, was about 67% of companies or industry leaders say that their technology budget has increased this year. Yes, but apparently not for fleet connectivity.
Yeah, but I think that technology budget does bleed into all areas, doesn't it? So, fleet connectivity is one area, and that used to be a fleet cost center, didn't it? But now fleet is really bleeding into that technology fund. So the budget for technology is really now covering a variety of areas, not just IT and networks. It is covering the hardware and so forth that we're equipping vehicles with. So it's great to see. It's great to see the adoption of these processes.
Okay. Question again for you, John. How significant is the adoption of video telematics and dash cams among fleets? And is your company Samsara still seeing pushback from drivers about it, or is there improvement?
Definite improvement. It's a really good question. So, if we think back to Alberto's timeline of telematics from those original SMS systems that you ping and hope you get a response to get a position of a vehicle 5 minutes later, through to where we are today with connected operations, including video to help drive improved behavior, we've come very much a long way. And the adoption now of video telematics, for me, is certainly, for a lot of organizations, the next step. They have already invested in telematics. There may be a three or four, fifth generation user of telematics. And they're really looking to say, we've got the savings from using telematics, live vehicle position, fuel savings, and so forth. How do we take that next step? How do we get to the next tranche of savings available to us? And a lot of that is around risk management. Mm-hmm. It's about reducing their risk profile and ensuring that A, they're right sizing their fleets, but B, when their fleets are operating, they're operating in the most risk-free way possible. So we're certainly seeing the adoption of dash cams, and I'll qualify that in a second. We're seeing the adoption of dash cams going up, but dash cams are very much more around being reactive to something that's already happened, giving you maybe some footage to go and push back against a claim against you. What the systems like Samsara do is provide a proactive tool. So we're using AI on the edge within the vehicle to help inform that driver when they're putting themselves in a dangerous position, whether that's through something overt like picking up a mobile phone, or something as close as following distance, drowsiness, inattentiveness. So that's really changing how video is used to being a proactive tool. And because we do this very much with privacy in mind, I think, yes, there is initial pushback from drivers, and there always will be, because it's an education piece, isn't it? It's about getting hearts and minds over the line. But once the driver understands that actually this is a tool that's there to support them and exonerate them and ultimately help them get home safely, we do find that the level of pushback really drops. And it only takes one or two instances for the drivers to go, this technology has my back. Yeah, this technology is here to support me. So we're really seeing that change, not just among drivers, but also among some of the sort of workforce collectives and union conversations that we're having as well. Which is great.
The final question is linked to one of the most important trends that we are seeing in the EMEA market, and that is fleet electrification. Do you agree, Alberto, that if you would like to run an electric fleet efficiently, that you can't do without fleet connectivity and telematics?
That you can't. So I
Can't,
wouldn't.
yes. That you need fleet, you need connectivity and telematics if you would love to run your electric
Yeah,
fleet efficiently.
for
Is
sure,
that
you
correct?
will, correct. You will need it, and I think more and more as time. So it's more and more important, especially as we have an integration of connected devices in the cities, in the highways. So that means, the incremental benefits of being connected will continue to increase, because now there will be much more information. So it will become more and more important to be connected to all this IoT ecosystem.
Then this is good news, John, because this would mean that also the penetration with passenger car fleets could be stimulated, as also those passenger car fleets will go electric. And let's say by 2035 in Europe, we can't buy new ICE vehicles anymore. So let's assume with cycles of 4 or 5 years, up to 7, 8 years perhaps for light commercial vehicles, that by, let's say, 2040, 2042, well, almost everyone will have a telematics device on board.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But I think even here and now, Stephen, as fleets are moving towards different powertrains, but take electric. It's an easy example. If you are running an operation that, I don't know, let's say it's a depot-based delivery operation in an urban environment, that operation needs to change. No longer can you have vehicles all going out at the same time to perform their deliveries, because inevitably you will have had to not only invest in the vehicles, but also the charging infrastructure that sits behind. And if that is within your depot environment, you can't have all the vehicles all arriving back from their first delivery runs at the same time. You will get congestion at the charging infrastructure. So very, very quickly, we can see that you're going to both need to change the profiling of your deliveries, but also you're going to need live information to schedule those vehicles. What's the state of charge of the vehicle coming back? How quickly, therefore, does it need to be on the infrastructure charging before I can move it off and bring the next vehicle in? So this whole optimization piece relies massively on connectivity and real-time information.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alberto from Ptolemus, and thank you, John from Samsara. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this Fleet Europe webinar in partnership with Samsara. And if you would like to know more about all the services and solutions of Samsara, please go to their website or contact John Mills, the client director of Samsara. Thank you once again, and hopefully I see you in an upcoming session of Fleet Europe webinar. Bye-bye.